Michael, I have a quick question.
We're actually live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you for joining. Today is March, Tuesday. What are we at? I don't even know. February 3rd, I think. So February 3rd, 2026. Thank you for joining.
March 3rd, Michael. March 3rd.
Beautiful. I don't even know. It's crazy when we're already into March and it's like, wow. Anyways, thank you for taking the time to join Digital World Town Hall meeting. We'll be focusing on things that have transpired this last week, whether they're advancements within the digital world or the world in general. And then any kind of Q&A. Any topic is open, and we'll be digging into any of the topics that are somewhat relevant or even global. But thank you for taking the time, and for whether it's actually the team that's here online or from all around the world, literally, or you that's listening, whether this is streaming later on. Thank you for paying attention and for being here and for caring. It's that type of thing that's actually going to make a difference. We'll go ahead and get started with a prayer. Anybody want to give us an introduction or an opening prayer? That would be greatly appreciated. I guess that's when I told them earlier I wasn't going to ask anybody if they wanted to, but yeah. I'll go ahead and offer it as we get started tonight. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before Thee and give thanks for the simple things that we've been granted the opportunity to be here in bodies and on this earth, and to have experiences and breath and life every day. We ask that we may be guided and led, that Thy Spirit may be with us, that we may know Thy will and we may understand our role in it, and that the way may be clear and shown, and as we continue forward, that we may be able to understand line upon line and do Thy will. We ask that Thy Spirit may be with this meeting and with those that are here, both physically and digitally, as well as maybe joining in the future. We're grateful for the opportunity to be a part of such an important work. And again, we invite Thy Spirit to be here, and we say these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. We're grateful for all those that are here, especially that have dedicated the years, not only in joining on the digital world, but also in helping to build the infrastructure and the ecosystems behind it. We're grateful for the knowledge and understanding that, there are secret environments out there that work together to control the masses, and to see that clearly and to be able to be a part of the solution. We're grateful for this time that we get to live here on Earth and to understand simple truths such as decentralization, and even centralized systems. I know a lot of you may think, why do you talk about that kind of thing? But it's real. It's in everything. There was a gentleman that flew in from Norway this last week. Wonderful gentleman. He's been involved for a very long time, and he just wanted to visit. And he said, I really believe that decentralized part of it. And we were driving through on a freeway, and I just talked about, the leaf on that tree. How does it grow? How does it learn? How does it become a tree from a simple seed? And yet leaves and branches, and they all grow themselves. And it's just beautiful to be able to see and be a part of, and not only through a simple truth like a seed in a tree, but also the universe and looking up, and a microscope and looking down. And we talked about that. But we're grateful for the simple understanding that there's different lines or layers, if you will. And as you put them together, it creates an opportunity where systems can come together. And where this, there's another gentleman that we met with this week, and he was like, I don't believe that everybody needs their own keys, to use other systems, or, what if I lose my keys, or what if it's too complicated, or I can't remember it. And it's neat to see that, even though we started long ago with having to have faith that there would be a solution there, to fast forward now where it's literally key rotation, key restoration, all of it can actually be realized along with key derived keys and how all that works. It's really neat to be able to see and just see how the physical worlds and the digital worlds can come together. For those that you may not be aware of, the things that we're focused on this year is a message around You Own You, around Life Vault, which is basically data infrastructure that the individual owns, whether it's photos or memories or texts or AI intelligence or essence or physical assets or digital assets or maybe property or maybe other things, but the ability to bring them together for the individual and then link AI on top of that in a way that is intelligently organized for not just the individual in this dispensation, but for future generations. One of the big advancements this last week is around different markets and the different markets that are actually formally getting stood up. All systems have gone into full production beta 2 or out of beta 2 into production version 2 systems. So every exchange that's out there, I'll drop out and kind of scroll through some of them, but they're literally getting locked down. There's 2 of them that will be going into beta 3 on version 3, but all of the version 2 will basically go out to the world, and then other environments can actually work to basically deploy these. If you want, I'll go ahead and walk through them real fast right now. I think it's right here. So these are all the different exchanges that are currently live in the world. Utah Exchange, Venezuela, Suremark, Clear Holdings. There's an environment, Zealand and Aotearoa, that's pretty special. There's some different exchanges within gold companies or precious metal companies or commodity type environments, and then different unions. So whether it's over in the Arabian environment, which there's a whole nother conversation there, as I know the world has literally, they struggle, with a lot of within the last, 72 hours, there's 14 countries that have had missiles shot at from Iran. And, for those that are not aware, we do our best to try and stay neutral in this environment. But a lot of the Arabian environments, this exchange particularly, there's 23 different countries in this. And one of the topics that came up this week was actually creating a specific type of governance ecosystems for these environments based upon the digital world technology. I don't know if that's going to get legs, but we'll talk about that in a little while. But just other use cases, whether it's tied to real estate, whether it's tied to life, that's going to be a big one here in the short term. Clear United is now up as far as a new site and new systems as we prepare to basically help people telling people, which is a really big opportunity there. And then, continuing to mature some of the Venezuelan environments and that. So if you haven't had a chance to see some of them, they're fully decentralized exchanges. There are currently 3 additional ones that we're working with and on, but yeah, so that's a pretty big topic there. Also within that same environment, it's important to note there is a DEX, so a decentralized exchange explorer. So for those of you that have been with us for a long time, you realize that, hey, what's actually happening? Where's the transactions? Who's doing what? And this actually goes through all transactions, all operations, all systems, literally the environments that are out there, kind of push or pull or trade or buy or sell. All of those systems are basically there. There's also some fun stuff around derived keys that will actually tie this in the future, and we'll go through those types of environments. So you can see here's some different transactions, DBTC, native. These are actually commodities, some equities. So you can dig into it. It's literally the transparent side of the digital world. And it's about time that, some of these environments, so you can see these are different assets that were actually created. Most of these are, I'm not sure what these are, but till today. And then you can see different businesses. So different assets, different individuals, but it's all private. So one of the other things that's happened is the ability to actually see a consolidation of digital world environments that may have different jurisdictions, and you can see different businesses or organizations or trusts or SPVs all throughout the whole digital world within one ecosystem. And one of the goals is to be able to formalize this in such a way where you can actually see multiple different systems or environments, and then also have a validating ecosystem that can actually walk through them. So again, these are private organizations, and then you can actually see individuals as well as assets. Maybe they're vehicles, maybe they're different types of things that people are pulling in, and then the actual individuals. So some people share different information, some people don't. Some people allow different content that's out there, but you basically have to cryptographically give it back to the individual, and the individual is a human separate from a bot. I can see a future, and we talked a little bit about this around a charter for the digital world that actually allows different types of bots, but they're bots that are actually welcomed within the digital world, but they also have a governed process around them. So for decentralized autonomous organizations, those are actually businesses that states and governments are allowing, where a private individual that's private can create an organization that actually is a public business and recognized. The first state in the United States of America was actually Wyoming. The second state was Utah. And there's many other parts of the world. There's a couple over in the United Arab Emirates. But the point being is this is actually welcoming the potential, and we haven't actually rolled it out. So whether it's instead of a decentralized autonomous organization, there's a digital economic organism, which actually is managed by a digital entity, a bot or an agent. And those basically have a form of governance. If you haven't seen this, I'll go ahead and put this for our live audience. I'll go ahead and drop this in here. So if anyone actually wants to see this, you're welcome to it. So neat advancements as the Explorer, assets, currencies, any kind of transactions, any kind of organizations. This has been a long time coming, and it's now live and out there in the wild. There'll also be some derived keys that will come from it. So in certain jurisdictions, there'll only be private environments. So you'll be able to see that as well, which is a different conversation. One of the other topics that I think is pretty material and important, or at least it was brought up, is different life apps, and as they relate to different parts of the world. So we've had, for those that are not aware, it's not just exchanges all around the world, but there's also different jurisdictions that plug into the digital world that have their own governance policy and potentials for their own jurisdiction. And most of them are going to be environments that are struggling. There was a big push today, kind of independent of everything that we're doing. I don't know if we've got, let's see who we've got on. No, I don't think we've got any. Yeah, Mariano, if you want to give us an update on what's going on in Mexico.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. Hey, hello. How are you?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm very glad to be here with you guys. Right now, I have been just speaking with Mr. Simon Levy, and I think that they're ready to deploy there in Mexico. I also have in touch with all the Gen Z movement. It's the whole generation in Mexico that they wanted like a huge change, They are working so hard. All these kids from the Generation Z, they needed something. They needed the system. Right now, they're only using Discord because it's the only thing, the free thing that we can use it right now. So it's very important to have all your systems, security, and and the reach in order for us to like self-govern the communities and the country itself, like take the sovereignty of the country and be able to get rid of the people who wants to. The only thing that I can say, like, terrorize and enslave, because there is no other way to say it. Like, there are so many criminal groups that they are like terrorizing all Mexico, and we need the people to stand and be able to organize themselves. So we have just doing it like in a very organic way, but we needed to be more protect. So that's why your systems, that's perfect setup. So I think that we are ready to deploy there, and we're very glad to be here with you guys.
You know what would be, by the way, it's good to see you. It's been a while. You know what would be, and it was wonderful to see, Simon and some of the involvement earlier today. But you know what would be really interesting is to understand what they're doing with Discord. And then one of the things I'd love for them to actually see and get an understanding of is there's literally a change. Let's see if I've done this wrong. So I'm going to pull open the Mexican Live for those that it may be a new type of environment. So this is actually a production system, and it does identity, health, voting, finance, dispute, currency exchanges, and business. And it can literally help a lot of the things that are currently being centrally controlled that actually take away an individual's identity and really sovereignty. But one of the things that I think is pretty interesting, this is actually a system, and it's just the start of it. And when people really understand what this is a decentralized environment where people can basically own their own connections. Similar, think about Discord and Signal and the Life apps and payments and rooms and spaces and jurisdictions all put into one environment. If you wanted to grab assets, if you wanted to grab a ride, if you wanted to literally link in social platforms, messaging platforms, payment platforms, all into one system, this is the first root of that. And I can easily see that becoming a part of the Mexican environment. If you really felt like, the folks on Discord wanted to actually pull in to this environment, we could explore changing some of the realities of that and pushing for the Mexican environment. One of the questions that I would have is the Iranian environment an environment that should actually be higher priority than Mexico or Venezuela? Because right now it's literally we're developing the roadmap. We can change it, we can modify it, because right now there's no leaders in Iranian environment. And even though there were 25 murders of people that were running for president in Mexico in 1 year, 2000, I want to say 24. And then also people that were murdered even after they're in power, and just crazy stuff that I think majority of the world, well, I can't say that they don't understand because they're seeing it. They're seeing it real time. I mean, what's happening right now in Iran is a similar environment. So what I would throw out there is, what is the best and highest priority from everyone's perspective here? On a development roadmap, is it the Utah environment, the Iranian environment, the Mexican environment, the Venezuelan environment? Because Mexico, Venezuela, and Iran are all high needs. They just need their own identity, their own ability to transact, their own ability to communicate. And, we're in a point where we can actually roll those out based upon what people are desiring. Like Venezuela, we had people that were connected in with crazy stuff that were reaching out and saying, hey, we need this app, we need the system, we need this, we need you to meet these people, we need you to show this, and they're coming into our world to say, hey, we need these systems, can you stand them up? We're not getting those requests directly from the Iranian people, but we are getting them indirectly through folks that are saying they could really use this and benefit from it more than other parts, especially, from what's understood, 49 of their leaders have been killed. Again, we try and stay neutral. We're just talking the facts, whether it's right, whether it's wrong. I don't know. Maybe that is a part of the conversation, but yeah. So there's some advancements there. There's some advancements with Clear Holdings. There's some advancements within the environments around the digital world. What we want to focus on right now, I think, is up in question. So there's some advancements that have been locked in when we talk about the ability for these different exchanges, completely stable, ready for production. The exchanging systems, the identity systems, the login systems, the validation systems. There's some advancements that we're working on with agreements, and I'll go ahead and pause here and see if anyone has comments on what we've talked about before. Any thoughts?
I had a question, Michael.
Yeah, please.
So I'm wondering, all of these places need this. We know we need this. Are we ready for the support and deploying that mass amount of support that's going to be needed for these communities to use and utilize these systems? I mean, they're in place, but do we have people who are boots on the ground, able to help get people going?
I think there's two different parts to it. One, that support the actual training and knowledge and systems and deployment. And that is where I think a large majority of our efforts and energy should go into. But really, these are just technologies that the people should be supporting themselves and deploying themselves. The real issue is, like Mariano on this call and Simon, I mean, just those two individuals alone can reach, I would say, Mariano, keep me wise or accurate, but I would say 10% of the Mexican people, which is like,
Yeah,
maybe,
pretty much.
Would you agree? That
Wrong. Even more, because with these little fellows of the Generation Z, I mean, we really have like people in all the states and all the municipalities. That is the same level as counties. So imagine having like representatives in each county nationwide. So for the 130 million people that lives in Mexico, that's a lot. Plus the other 60 million of Mexicans that live in the US. We have a lot of people that they wanted to create a new narrative, because it's a civilization project. How we can align two different projects that are completely different. That is the Anglo-Saxon Protestant and the Hispanic, more Catholic, like civilization project, and how we can create a new narrative. Because at the end, here in this hemisphere, we are together in this continent. So the Americas, it's a whole continent. So we will need to find a way that we can work together in a new story that unites these two. It's not countries. These two, I will say, civilizations. And how we can arrange something there. So that's my 2 cents, and it aligns super nice with your project. That one, the one that you're like showing right now, the whole continent. And I think that that's the time. With everything that is happening right now in the world, we will need to align. That's my perspective, and I think that what is happening right now in the political level. I was talking with several candidates for senators here in Austin, because we had a meeting because of all the hemp related policies. And I was talking about exactly this same project, and they're delightful because I think that there's something that we need to start talking about, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's not about religion. It's about that how this civilization start and what was the foundations of each civilization and what are the common points and what are the intrinsic points as well, and what will be the pivotal point for us to create a new narrative. Because if we create a new narrative, we can unite, you know, those two civilization into something new, something more, but yeah, powerful in the sense that it could be more stable, you know. And I think that the future has to be decentralized. That's my perspective. So, and I'm very glad to be here with you guys because I think that we all share this same vision of the world, you know, in order to be more just. I don't think that the justice need to be done in a centralized like control system, you know, because that's how the whole world is evolving right now, you know, into a surveillance state and try to control everything. But the whole humanity has awaked, you know, and right now we have the opportunity to demonstrate that we can do something completely different and that we can do something that is meaningful for the whole humanity, you know. But we need to demonstrate it, you know. We need to have I was about to say a saying in Spanish, but it's kind of mean. But anyway, sorry. that's my perspective. Hopefully that makes any sense.
Yeah. So there's really three hotspots that are going on right now. You got Venezuela, you've got Mexican and ecosystem, and you've got the Iranian environment now. This is the Venezuelan system. You know, what's happening there is I don't think we've ever really seen the reality of what's going on. You know what we should probably do, Wally? If you could give me a task this week to follow up with Patrick and to figure out priorities around that, because really what it comes down to is what is the question? For instance, here, you know, there's a voting environment. This is an example. This is not production. This is just an example. If someone wants to actually cast a vote, let's say for this individual, if anybody's got a Life app, you can do it here real fast. It can also tie to some other really beautiful things around geospacing and environments like that, but it's actually cryptographically done. Wally, would you also take another task to add to the Explorer the voting transactions? Wally, can you give me a confirmation? Oh, thank you. You're actually sending these things real time. Yeah, I appreciate that. So what we're basically talking about is imagine if the transaction of my scanning can also be seen within similar things like what we just showed you here within this environment of the ability to actually say, I want to actually see votes. I want to see, you know, the transaction is actually public, but the ability for the privacy of the individual is actually private. And that is something that humanity has never seen. And most of these countries have dominion system or fraudulent systems, and a lot of them have those types of environments. But yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is whether we're talking about the Venezuelan environment, kind of like what we're looking at here, or the American environment, or the Canadian environment, or the Mexican environment, or now, you know, the around Iran. I don't know. I don't know what the right step is there. I just think that, you know, us asking the question and putting the right resources in the right places is important. I can tell you that we're making massive advancements within these systems. So this is the Utah environment, which for those that are not aware, we've been able to pass 4 and potentially 5 different material laws that tie to the work that's directly here. There's actually more validated assets that are live, and all it is basically a verification. There's no trading pairs or no centralized support of particular assets other than, these things are actually verified, the companies behind them. There's an element of I want to say it's assets.org. Too bad it doesn't come up. Actually, no, this is it. So this is basically one of the underwriting processes. So those things are being stood up, whether they're assets that are in currencies, equities, commodities, livestock, which, by the way, that's going to be a big part of, I think, this next year. There's some really big things in Utah and potentially in New Zealand / Aotearoa around that, and starting with livestock and then growing into other assets. So maybe it's something you drive, maybe it's something you live in, maybe it's something you pay with, maybe it's something you work with, but the ability for those to become very real and then to have a stage that they can actually be jumped onto. I'll jump through that real fast and give you a report out on some of that. So this last week, we were actually able to do a pretty large event, actually at the same environment. So this stage, imagine digital assets, imagine people's lives, imagine not just funerals, but a celebration of life and who they are, the memories, people coming together, people sharing, people uniting. This goes through some of the new Life app that's being announced and launched, which is much more advanced than the existing one, primarily with the communications element being wrapped into it. You can also tie in other devices, whether they're laptops, tablets, whether they're Linux, Windows, Macintosh, you name it. I guess it's not Macintosh anymore, but Apple. This is the gentleman that actually came in from the Netherlands. Fun guy, wonderful guy. This is something that the teams within, the Maximal and Clear Homes environments are advancing on. Amazing people and designs. The community part of things are actually going to tie in. There's an agreement element that's actually coming in within the app. So imagine this, and I'll just briefly touch on this, and I'll just leave this up because this is actually a key gentleman. Too bad he wasn't able to join. He was going to try, but imagine if we could have an application that did signing with AI agreements or draft agreements that were pulled in as templates, but you have 2 different entities. One, maybe they're both private. Maybe you have party A and party B that have wallet X and wallet Y. And inside of this, there's a jurisdiction of the digital world. And they say, these payments are going to be made in this period of time, and these results will come from the payments as a byproduct. So you got party A and party B agreeing to do certain things in a form of a futuristic smart agreement. And then if something is actually not paid, you can see it cryptographically didn't transfer from wallet X to wallet Y, and therefore, a notice can go out from party B that party A didn't send it. And make a long story short, it can actually follow a process of complete autonomy with individuals that are completely private, even through a dispute resolution process. That's never happened before in the world, and that's some of the pieces that we're currently working on. There's massive advancements within the Clear Holdings side of things. Wonderful, man. This gentleman, I don't even want to say names, but there's a lot of advancements within that, a lot of planning within future events that are going to happen in about 45 days. Communities that are actually getting behind it, not just small or private, but communities that are literally have serious legs behind them. I'm talking thousands of people and thousands of beds and doors right on brand new lakefront environments that's all, brought together. This is a gentleman that makes a ton of food and ships it every day, probably one of the most advanced chefs that I've ever met, especially when it comes to automation. if you've had food that's on airplanes or others, where are they made? How are they made? How is it all tied to things? This is actually some of the folks. These are a couple legislators. Amelia, who's a Utah County clerk. She's actually the first woman to ever be married with a digital, decentralized, cryptographic marriage. Wonderful, wonderful woman. Now they've done almost 120,000 of these digital marriages around the world. To the Utah Blockchain Association, to folks that are senators that are actually passing some of these bills. Like, it's right now in the closing process, and we're grateful for some of those parts and pieces. We're grateful for some of our friends that are on from Canada. You know, we see some new things that are going on. So October 19th, 2026 will actually be a day where Alberta will vote to potentially become a nation. That's a pretty material. That's going to create some compelling events. I also think it's related to some of the conversation we talked about before with Venezuela and Mexico and others. I think it's interesting that building and homes and other things that are going on, different events, different families that are also tying into this, large families that are very influential, folks from all around the world that are literally linking together on the digital and physical worlds, coming together and saying, I get that now. I can actually see how that can work. Whereas a lot of these calls over the years, it's just been people that are like, I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. You're speaking a different language. People are actually starting to get it. And not just that, but states and provinces and countries are getting it. And the key is the people inside of it actually want it. Most of them are saying, we don't even know what questions to ask. You know, we don't know where to start. And I think that ties back to the question today around Iranian, Mexican, or Venezuelan. You know, what is the target? What is the focus? But we're grateful for the leadership that the state of Utah is standing up to be a part of. And these are some of the memories of this last week. This is actually, you know, some of this new Discord app that we were talking about. You want to do real-time video with your friends and or bots. You want to be able to connect in on a private environment instead of using things that are centralized like Google Meets or the old stuff, Google Hangouts, or the Zoom platforms or the Microsoft platforms. You can literally own your own data, your own identity, your own bots, your own channels, your own connections. There's no centralized systems. Very, very valuable. We won't talk about this right now, but the net is, it's been an interesting week. A lot of things have happened and a lot of progress, a lot of benefits, a lot of results. And we're grateful for those people that are plugging into it and becoming a part of it. Anything else that folks want to bring up before we move to the kind of the next chapter of things? Thoughts, comments, feedback, observations? Now is your time. Okay.
Michael,
Yeah.
I have to keep refreshing my screen to get the next slide. I don't know if that's something with my internet here or
one of the things to solve that, if you want to just watch on any of the streaming platforms, you can watch the videos and slides real time. If you're having issues here, this says that you have bandwidth issues. That's why it says your video has been turned off to save bandwidth on your side. So one of the things that you could do is just keep your video off, and you'd mute, and then you would go on to Facebook or X or YouTube, or even there's a separate channel, but basically you can watch there, or you can continue to refresh. I know it might be difficult, but yeah. Other thoughts or comments?
Thank you.
You're all good. Welcome. Go ahead and just give a couple seconds for anybody that wants to unmute and bring up an observation around what you're seeing or not seeing. I'm going to go ahead and play this while we're thinking. So this is an interesting thing. I think it's it's an observation that's very poignant and it's very relevant. So we'll go ahead and jump into this real fast.
Wait, it's not about their nukes?
No. Iran's central bank counts because their oil and energy is very important, including for China. If you're going to come out with programmable money,
with a revolutionary new payment system,
with digital IDs that are interoperable globally, that controls in each jurisdiction centrally, you can't afford leakage. Iran right now is the big leakage in the system. Now, Larry Fink and BlackRock have said
we need to move very rapidly.
they're planning on trading all stocks and bonds using tokens.
All investments on a tokenized platform.
What it means is this is going to be,
We have one common blockchain.
potentially $100, $200, $300 trillion market. $100, $200, $300 trillion market.
The wars, the Epstein files, the aliens, AI, it's all to keep you from the truth. The power brokers are trying to preserve US dollar dominance at any costs. All the value is converging into precious metals and soon the digital rails. Put your faith in God and he'll handle the rest.
So I think there's a lot more to it. We've got to actually act and we've got to do. And I think a lot of the things that you're seeing within the digital world are those actions and doing consistently, in the same path. Are we perfect? No, I'll be the first one to say that, especially not me. But do we care? Yeah. And so other thoughts? Go ahead. Feedback? Observations from what you just saw? Glenn, welcome back. Well, a lot of moving parts. It's a great time to be alive. Any feedback or thoughts or comments before we wrap up? If not, we'll go ahead and wrap up and see everybody next week.
Hey, Michael, I've got some comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
I think just from what you're saying, I think we need to go ahead and continue with building Iran Life. I think that's a priority right now. And focusing on, I would like to know more about the livestock. I know that you've spoken about it previously, but currently at the moment, I'm just doing some background work for communications in Gaza. And I'm looking at 2 different designs from building back some of the infrastructures. And I don't know if you know, but they still use donkeys to take out their trash. So I would like to know how these innovations around livestock would be able to help with environmental issues that we have.
What's interesting is public utilities are one of the things that actually is the linchpin that breaks down when we talk about decentralized or centralized governance. Trash service, believe it or not, trash service is a very interesting animal. And maybe what we could do is use some of these new channels to actually help facilitate that. And while you were mentioning this, particularly the Iranian environment, I think why not stand up Israel and Iranian together and see if we can even connect people to people.
That would be awesome.
Instead of just taking one side and what if we could just do that and then use these tools and systems to enable people to actually open up communication, because we never know, what is actually truth, how do we discern right from wrong, truth from error, the things that we're seeing. For instance, I've seen that there's a lot of people that are dancing and having positive feedback around what's happened, and then I see other people that are just wailing, and I can only imagine these are real people that have actually lost lives. I don't know the details of, is there oppression, is there unrighteous dominion, and it's not my kuleana, as some would say. It's not my right, but I do think that open dialogue and communication where people can connect one with another in a very independent way, and then also verify and transact and actually do simple things like what you're talking about around trash. So if we want to use that as a use case within one of these environments, what's funny is it actually comes up in a lot of these different decentralized systems, because that's kind of what a civic responsibility is around how do you get these things organized and delivered, and who does what, and how do bills get paid, and how does it all work? So very
Yeah.
interesting observation. And into livestock, we're currently moving forward with sheep and cattle and bison in Utah. And what's interesting is that was one of the topics. The sheep was one of the final topics when it was going through the Senate to be passed onto the House floor in the state of Utah at the Capitol. The sheep came up. I thought it was very interesting. But we're continuing that, and hopefully there's some other parts of the world, Aotearoa / New Zealand. I know that there's a really beautiful equestrian and horse-based environment there, and they look at it from a very different standpoint. It's not eating animals, it's breeding them and racing them, and whole nother use case. So hopefully that's something that materializes. If not, we've got a lot of other priorities, especially what we're talking about today within the Venezuelan, Mexican, Iranian, and potentially Israeli environments. So other thoughts or comments, feedback, observations?
Hey, Michael, Glenn here.
Hi, Glenn.
I just want to say thank you for this town hall. It's a wonderful platform just to hang out with you guys and just listen and, expand my knowledge on what's going on with you guys and worldwide. Now, what happened in Canada here, because I've only been on 2 or 3 calls with you guys, did you ever talk about what happened in British Columbia and the ostriches, and how there were some US entities, people with money, and I think even Mr. Kennedy wanted to bring the ostriches down and have them tested on a farm in the US and find out, like those ostriches had, how can I say, they had properties within that animal that would unlock what we went through in the last 5 years. But then our Canadian government got involved and they ruthlessly murdered those birds at nighttime undercover. Did you people ever talk about what happened there?
I've personally never heard anything about that, but it's just sad to hear things like that. I don't know if it's true. I don't know what the details are. Can anybody else shed light on this, or maybe you, Glenn, can?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it relates or ties, but go ahead.
These animals had antibodies that were linked to unraveling the nonsense of the COVID 5-year.
Is it kind of like how the bird flu and the swine flu and all that stuff basically?
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. It just unraveled, just like peeling back an onion peel. And our powers that be here in Ottawa, they went in there with their goons and they wiped out these birds.
How many were there? How many birds were there?
Several hundred. And they wiped them out in the middle of the night, and in the morning there were still a few of them alive, suffering, and these goons that were sent in, it was just a terrible thing. I thought this was went out worldwide, but because our media here is controlled by the government, CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, I call them the Communist Broadcasting Company, they're funded by the government here in Canada. So Canadians don't get to see a lot of what's going on. That's why I love plugging in with you guys to understand really what's going on worldwide. So I just wanted to throw out that ostrich story. It was devastating for so many people that love pets, and animals. And
I had never heard of it, but it does sound sad. I don't know what they did with bird flu and swine flu and gain of function and COVID and all that other stuff. I don't know how they would unravel it with the ostriches, but I would love to kind of look into it. I'm sure there's other ostriches around the world, or was it just kind of their population that they were doing some unique things with? Or
yes, it was. They were on the forefront of just exposing what happened with the last 5 years, and they had the antibodies that were going to unravel a lot of the conversations that people that were awake during the last 5 years, and they just put the boots to them. So I just was curious if on your platform, you guys, because you brought up Alberta and the possibility of Alberta separating from Canada, possibly in the fall. So I just was wondering if you had touched on the BC ostrich farm.
Yeah, no, I wasn't familiar with that. I do know that British Columbia actually was one of the first provinces and places in the world to roll out decentralized identifiers along with Sweden. And we actually signed up to provide some development and coding for the British Columbian environment. Land records and property can actually be sold with blockchain-based heuristics or characteristics. And it actually just happens that some of the crew developing on the ranch that we're currently on, which is about a 1,200 acre ranch, they basically sold property up in that environment, and actually they actually have already worked with British Columbian real estate law and titles, and now we're bringing it here to Utah. So, and the actual developers behind the technology behind it were from Utah. So, and this goes back probably, I don't know, 7 years. But I was totally ignorant to this ostrich thing, and this link for whatever reason is not coming up. Let me see if I can modify it and get something that's really.
It's coming up
Yeah.
for me, so I don't know why it's not coming up for you.
Yeah, there's a government entity that was marched in there, and they shut down the farm. And the family that ran the farm, I mean, they're willing to let their, these precious birds be tested, and they went in there, wiped out the birds and the eggs, so everything was destroyed.
It's sad, but I would hope that we could actually stand up to this type of thing and actually, not allow. I mean, I don't understand why someone didn't just, say something.
Yeah, there was people there on the front lines. There, like the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is now probably so corrupt with what's going on in Ottawa, which is like our Washington for the U.S. people. But there's so much corruption here. It's really sad. Like you hit the nail on the head there. Like it's really sad what happened to that farm and the family that. Yeah, that happened in the last fall.
We'll go ahead and give another link a try and see if we can pull that up. But yeah, other thoughts or comments or feedback or observations or whatever you want to talk about? There must be something on my side here, guys. I must be doing something wrong here.
Well, the way the world, Michael, sometimes a lot of this stuff is just wiped out.
Well, I think that we need to stand up for what's right. That's our responsibility. These types of things, you have to hold the different folks accountable. This is someone else's property that they destroyed, right?
Exactly.
I think in most parts of the world, that's a criminal offense. So do you know who did it? Did they take any kind of press charges, or I don't understand why.
It's proceeding, but I mean, the government's corrupt. The whole the judges are corrupt up here. It's almost like a third world country up here, which is really, really sad. Canada used to be a beacon around the world as, a free society, free thinkers. But what happened with Trudeau the last 11 years, and he thought the budget was going to balance itself by bringing in a lot of immigrants. I've got lots of immigrants. My parents and my grandparents were immigrants, but they brought in so many. We went from 35 million people right across Canada, which is huge, from 35 million up to 42 million in a matter of 8 years. No homes, no jobs. Hospitalization is terrible here now. We used to be the shining beacon of hospitalization here. But anyway, I'm sorry to be on my soapbox about, you asked if there was anything I want to talk about, and that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I think the reality is, you know, when you have people that can come together and be a part of a solution. For instance, Guar is one of the prettiest parts of the world. You know, Tofino is one of the most gorgeous environments. But when you really understand and we back up a couple hundred years, these were actually different tribes that ran those lands and that lived off of the lands. And when we really figured out we're guests on this earth and we have a responsibility to the earth and to one another and even to the animals. I mean, we have a stewardship. And, you know, I think when we figure that out, instead of, you know, I saw a video, a kid asking an elderly gentleman around his life and if he had any feedback, and he was like, you know, I'm just sorry that we didn't do a better job of providing a better base for your generation to stand up in, you know. And I think what we really need to focus our energy on is how can we actually be a beacon and a part of the solution instead of, you know, for those of you that are aware, I go through this presentation every single meeting, you know, and what's interesting is when we talk about secret combinations and kind of go through the details of how they work, and, you know, it's actually applies to almost all the things that are going on. And yet there's a simple solution to it, which is really around the simple decentralization. You know, if you can still have intelligence. So for instance, why can't we use intelligence to help some of the things that are going on in the data with these animals to make it so there's not a central target where someone can just go to one kill it? And that's why decentralization really is important, and why if we can link communications for humanity that actually come together where identity and payments and how data is governed or data is managed. Like, I personally see a future before those folks on this call, majority of us take our last breath, where data doesn't just become something that disappears if you don't pay a bill for 90 days. You know, most of you on this call have a Gmail account. And if you don't pay storage fees, or if you have a Google Apps account where you've got a custom domain around it, if you don't pay for your suite fees, they go away. And all of the history, the emails, the photos, the messages, the context, the calendar, the recordings, the AI involvement, it goes away. I foresee a future where you can own you, not only your ID and your data and your transactions, but in perpetuity, and future generations can actually benefit from it. And this ostrich thing is a perfect example of how could we actually have stopped that? How could we have taken the data from these ostriches or actually had maybe other ostriches around the world that are running similar type tests and data sets, and people connecting, collaborating directly without centralized systems, without censorship? You know, I see a future where that's very, very real. And I don't know this ostrich situation. I'm just saying that, you know, in many cases, and I'm not saying it's all cases, decentralization actually can be a part of the solution where centralized systems are trying to control one another. And like,
well, that's why I brought it up, because I'm so new here, and you know, the hair literally stands up on the back of my neck when I listen to this conversation and what you are shedding light on. And I'm absolutely perplexed why you people didn't hear about this. This was around the world for about 2 months because they were locked down, and then there's court battles. I went to the Supreme Court, and then these goons went in there and wiped them out. A billionaire from the US was willing to truck those birds down and get them tested on the US, and Kennedy got involved. And all of a sudden they just went in there and wiped them out. Like, and then what I'm hearing from you people here and what you're doing here, did we lose Michael?
no, I'm still here. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So it's just, my mind is blown that the US, because it was a US billionaire that was going to come in there and kind of expose and put a flashlight on what really happened the last 5 years worldwide. So that's why those birds were dealt, because they had the answer to COVID. They had the answer to COVID. So I know you're a busy guy. I hope you get a chance to pursue that. I was fortunate to get down to New Zealand in 2013, and I got to travel around there. It's a business pleasure trip for 6 weeks. So I got to meet a lot of wonderful people, and the Maui people, and what that whole civilization went through to get their sovereignty. So I'm really excited you're plugging in with you guys every week. So thank you for your time.
You know what's interesting is I really see what's happening with these Epstein files and what's happening with the arrests or potential, incarceration or even accountability around the world with the Epstein environment. I think it's shedding a light that, humans are humans, and the ability for mistakes to be made and leaders to be, especially like when you look at Canada or New Zealand or Australia, those are colonial based countries that the crown basically enables a local government, Canadian government, Australian government, New Zealand government. Those are entities that are separate from the crown. And in most cases, actually all the cases, they took the land, whether by force or by treaty. And I would argue, are the treaties actually upheld? But the Treaty Waitangi, I can tell you, there's lots of discrepancies. And it's just, these were lands that were taken from other people, but really were they taken from other people, or were they taken as a gift to all of us? And then does that turn into a responsibility for all of us? When we talk about, I remember in 2007, I was in New Zealand or in Australia, and the New Zealand government wrote, or the Australian government wrote in the clouds, it wasn't chemtrails, I don't think it was back then. But for those from Australia, I don't know if you remember this, but they said with the plane, we're sorry. And I thought, at least it's recognized. At least it's recognized that the torture and the damage. And, you talk about, I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman named Phil Lane Jr. As a matter of fact, we'll see if we can end this meeting with Phil Lane. But he's from British Columbia, and he's deeply involved in this work. He's a very key part of this work. And, he actually went to the Canadian government and said, what you've done here to these children, you raped and pillaged them and stole them and kidnapped them and killed them, and it was wrong. And it took a long time, but they basically were able to prove that it happened. And then the government actually paid restitution, hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know if you remember that. I wonder what's going on here. This must be my system. So, but I would love to play this video from Phil and just kind of, let's see if I can find it. You guys still with me? It's too bad. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Everyone, next week, hopefully the same time and same place. Much love, everybody. We will talk to you. Well, it looks like we're still streaming. I wonder what's going on here. We'll give it another shot here. Let's wrap up this. Turn that off. We're going to kick a couple things off here real fast. I think it's time for a new system. There we go. We'll see if that solved it. Well, we'll wrap it up today. We'll see you guys next week. Much love. What? Jeez. Yeah, we'll call it good. So we'll see you all next week. Thanks for all you're doing. Much love, everybody.